I mean, I love having different cultures around, but when the parent culture kind of dissipates, you're left thinking, well, what's going on?
Most people, I would even be willing to say the vast majority of people understand and recognize that government, especially at the federal level, is totally corrupt.
BBC London is looking at the changing face of London and what it means for the capital. Figures compiled for the programme suggest that in the next 20 years, the ethnic diversity of this city will change dramatically.
For the first time ever, the number of people who class themselves as white British is now a minority in London.
People who identify as white British citizens are now a minority in their capital city.
White folks are on track to becoming, and I hate to say this, a minority in America.
A new report out by the government shows that by the year 2042, white Americans will no longer represent the majority of the population. That prediction is 8 years sooner than previously expected.
That the native French population would be finding itself in a rapidly decreasing minority.
Her kan etnisk norske være i mindretall om 20 år. I 2030.
Children from white families in Birmingham are set to become a minority group for the first time when this year's census is collected in March.
The latest census suggests white British born are now in a minority.
Census Bureau says white will be a minority.
I don't know what to say about that. I don't think it's a good thing.
Isn't it strange how, for some reason, all white countries and only white countries have this forced mass immigration from the third world? There has been no vote about this at all. I often hear it said that people should have the right to live wherever they want. But if they think people should live wherever they want, then why do we have forced immigration?
And if we get a more diverse profile of councillors in community so it's really important.
There can be no ethnically pure state in Europe. We have a whole program of diversity which was aimed entirely at chasing down white people. So we have white flight, assimilation, that diversity means that all whites must be chased down. All white first, chase down. Those two words are critical. Chase down white people. That explains the situation.
Uncle Sam wants to help you diversify your neighborhood, whether you like it or not.
To basically white children in Europe.
So they have to be forced by the government to bring in the third world into all white living spaces.
Chase down white people.
Diversity means chasing down every last white person. Ad I see now has some kind of mixed couple of some sort. I see this being pushed everywhere. White men are made to look nerdy and stupid. They can't dance and they're so boring. But the non-white men are made to look strong, masculine, and heroic. It is no longer a good thing to have white children. They are considered boring and undiverse.
Not only do you have propaganda, which is massively anti-white,
ban on graffiti that is displayed prominently on a fence that runs along I-59 near the 31st Street exit in Birmingham.
Yeah, you can see it when you're driving from Birmingham towards the airport. WIAT 42 News reporter Lillian Lalo found out exactly what that phrase means and how people are reacting to it.
Hashtag white genocide. That's what's written on the side of this wooden fence that faces I-59. We've done stories in the past where similar billboards have popped up around our viewing area. This is the first where the message wasn't paid for in a form of vandalism.
The space between these two fences is narrow, but there's plenty of room for at least one person to get back here with a spray can.
And community members like Bernie Fields want it to be covered.
We have outgrown that, and we've gotten over that. People have learned to respect people of all races, but it just seems like some people just still want to hold on to it. But I really would like to believe that they are in the minority.
According to Mark Potok, who works for the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, white genocide is a catchphrase used by a white supremacist group that exists online called the White Genocide Project. The group believes that anyone who actively opposes racism is secretly against white people. And because women are having fewer white babies, this translates to genocide of white people.
It's an absurd claim. But nevertheless, this is what they say, that white people are being destroyed in their own home.
Potok says while it's discouraging to see signs like this, in the past 2 years, the SPLC has seen a 20% drop in hate groups throughout the United States. Lillian Lalo, WIAT 42 News, coverage you can count on.
Thursday night to move the conversation away from his former lawyer implicating him in federal crimes by tweeting out a common talking point of white nationalists and neo-Nazis. Late Wednesday night, Trump tweeted that he had directed Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to investigate the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. He have asked Secretary of State and Sec Pompeo to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. South African government is now seizing land from white farmers. At Tucker Carlson at Fox News, Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump August 23, 2018. Trump is referring to a virulent, racist conspiracy theory that has been a pet cause of hardcore white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and the alt-right for several years. More recently, Fox News' Tucker Carlson, one of the president's favorite conservative cable news pundits, has taken up the cause. The conspiracy theory is based on the very real and very controversial issue of post-apartheid land reform in South Africa. But the white nationalists who propagate it have taken what is a genuinely thorny issue and magnified it beyond all objective fact, twisting it into what they see as a nightmare cautionary tale of white genocide. Here's what's going on, and why it's so disturbing that Trump is now basing U.S. foreign policy decisions on a fringe white nationalist conspiracy theory. The long, fraught history of racist land policies in South Africa for nearly 50 years, starting in the late 1940s, the black Africans who make up the majority of South Africa's population were subjected to an official government policy of institutionalized political and economic discrimination and strict racial segregation by the white European minority who ruled the country under a system known as apartheid. In practice, discrimination against black Africans had gone on for hundreds of years before it ever became official policy. Among many other infringements on their basic rights, black South Africans were legally barred from living on, operating businesses in, or owning land in vast swaths of the country that were set aside for whites only. By the time apartheid formally ended in 1994, nearly 90% of all land in the country was owned by whites, despite the fact that they made up just 10% of the population. Land reform efforts aimed at remedying this situation began when apartheid ended. But after nearly 25 years, the huge disparity hasn't gone away. A 2017 audit by the South African government found that whites still own 72% of private farmland in South Africa. In 2016, the country's parliament passed a bill allowing for the expropriation of property for a public purpose or in the public interest, subject to just and equitable compensation. In other words, the government could legally force white landowners to give up their land in return for a fair price. The land would then be redistributed to black South Africans. But that process, too, has been slow, and people are getting tired of waiting. Support for a small, far-left political party that advocates for nationalizing all land in South Africa has been growing. So now, with elections looming next year, the ruling African National Congress ANC party has decided to take more drastic action, amending the constitution to make it legal for the government to seize a land without providing compensation. That move is being welcomed by many in the country, but not everyone is convinced it's a good idea. Some, including investors, worry that it could trigger a catastrophic economic crisis like the one that occurred in neighboring Zimbabwe when it enacted similar reforms in 2000. Their rapid land seizures panicked investors, causing them to flee the market in droves. That led to massive hyperinflation and food shortages that effectively collapsed the country's economy. Experts put the cost to Zimbabwe's economy at around $20 billion. But another group of people, including white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and members of the alt-right in Europe and the United States, see the South African land expropriation plan as much more than a potential economic misstep to them. It's a full-scale genocide against the country's white minority. How a small lobbying group convinced people around the world that a white genocide is happening in South Africa. Afraid Forum is a lobbying group based in South Africa that advocates for the rights and interests of a segment of the country's white minority known as Afrikaners, formed in 2006.
You know, Chief, let me tell you that our people died. Maybe your grandfather and your great-grandfather and your father didn't tell you what they did to our fathers and our grandfathers and our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers. That is why you come here with that tendency of even undermining us, telling us that we are delinquent, we are mad. That is why you come here with your whiteness and undermine that your grandfathers took our land and they murdered our people. That is why you come here and not acknowledge that the country is where it is because of your parents. That is why you are laughing, because you are not where we are today. Let me tell you, my brother, you are not my brother anyway.
No, he is.
No, he's not. He's not. The fact of the matter, Chief, is that the land, chunk of the land is in your hand as white. Secondly, the reason why we go to towns is because that's how your spatial development made us to be. It doesn't mean that the land that you are occupying, as blacks, we can't work it. The manner in which you introduced your neoliberal and your apartheid system to us, make us to move to towns because we feel that where the towns are, that's where life is. Because you have taken everything that belongs to us, including the arable land that we use, our fathers used to work on it. You have taken our cattle. You have taken everything that belongs to us. That is why you are so arrogant towards us. You think we are inhuman. We are not living beings. That is why you are acting in the manner in which you are acting. I'm in here because of your arrogance. And let me tell you, my brother, from another mother, we are going to take our land, whether you like it or not. The land that doesn't belong to you, we are going to take it. That belongs to us. We are going to take it. Yeah. In your submission, you did mention that you are the only food producers. Yeah, it's here. It's in this thing that you have given us. It's in this thing that you have given us. You are the author of this thing. There is a sentence in this thing that you have given us that says, should the land be expropriated, the only people that are going to be compromised are food producers. And those food producers happens to be who? It means you are protecting your own pocket with the expense of us as black people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Sultana.
Just starting off with the last point, method of land acquisition that you mentioned, conquest. It is with pain to remind South Africans here and now that your grandparents held and conducted 10 bloody wars over a period of 100 years in the Eastern Cape. At the end of the day, 3 million hectares of land in the Eastern Cape is in white hands, and blacks only own 250,000. That's what you achieved. I will not talk about the rest of South Africa. So that conquest is a painful reminder of our past. Now you talk about the Einstein, theory that doing the same thing over and over again, applying the same method, is not the wisest thing to approach when you're looking for change. Now, you are sending this country back to those kind of wars. Who in South Africa would think that AfriForum is a wise institution when you yourself are saying that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different set of results is not the best thing? So that's where you want to send South Africa to. I don't know how many people in South Africa are interested in those wars, which you are advocating for. Thirdly, you seem to be very comfortable to put blame on the current operational failures of the current government. Now, this process is not about evaluating the failure or success of the current government. Governments come and go, and it could be a totally different government in a couple of months' time, if not a couple of years. Lastly, Chair, I want to thank this gentleman, powered as he is by the minority AfriForum, for the attitude that he has displayed with those contents. You have hardened our attitude that maybe we don't even need a Codesa. We don't even need a court case. The Constitution has to be amended in a matter of months if we've got such people in the country. And then we can go back to war if need be. That's basically where you have sent me from now onwards. I know there is a member of parliament who said, should this happen, there will be civil war. Okay, the Constitution should be amended in a matter of months if we've got such people in this country. We're wasting time by talking. After all, there were no talks 400 years ago. People were simply murdered. When I grew up, my father didn't own any land on which to produce food for us to eat. The nearest food producing field was 10 kilometers away. And until he died, we had to walk in the morning to those fields, then chase 9 o'clock at school. At 2:30, we go back there. By the end of the day, we're finished because my father had no milling fields on which to. And you want that to be repeated. You have the guts to come to this legislature to tell us that you want that to be repeated. And my mom.
So what we're talking about is the seizure of land that occurred during the South African apartheid era, where they seized thousands and thousands acres, which they call hectares, of land. And now the South African majority is getting ready to vote regarding expropriating the land back to the people without compensation. And the reason that they're stating without compensation is because they were not compensated for their lands when they took them. Neither should they be compensated for apartheid. And that's what this particular subject is about. I also added white annihilation and how the European populations are declining, especially in South Africa, where there are already minorities, and they're dogmatizing Africans today. They're still in slavery in their own land through apartheid, although apartheid is supposedly, dismantled. It is not. But look at this face right here. So I'm going to click this back in.
Mother was a qualified teacher, had to drop out of school because of the policies of apartheid. Because the policy wouldn't allow her to teach whilst my father was also a teacher. And there was no field for her, for our family to produce food. But here I am today as an MP. I will stand for them. Let's go for the amendment of the Constitution. This talk, Honorable Chair, is waste of time with such characters in South Africa.
Except that the process of Parliament.
Was from AfriForum was trying to present whatever he wanted to present to this committee. He was drunk on hatred of hating black people. The insanity he defined, I could see on him. The insanity he defined on the alliance of so-called alliance of ANC and EFF, I could see on him. And don't come here and misrepresent facts. As we are talking now, even before, there's never been food security. There's been a lot of food shortage long before, especially for us, for masses of our people. So now, because Parliament has taken a resolution, you come here and try to be smart.
Look at the faces.
Try to be as if you are sympathetic to our people and say that they will, if this happens, there will be shortage of food. That's sheer insanity, drunk on hatred. The issue of, I'm taking back the words, Chair. The issue of, in law we say there is a rest you lose, no man's land. The thing belongs to no one, like the birds when they fly here. They don't belong to anyone, they are rest you lose. So you want to tell us that in 1488, when Bartholomew Dias arrived here, it was no man's land. In 1652, when those guys, Jan van Riebeeck, arrived here, it was no man's land. That's sheer insanity and drunkenness on hatred. So what I would like to know from you, although I don't think it's necessary, as Honorable Mampur has alluded to, our royalty, our great-grandfathers and mothers, our kings and queens, were robbed of their land. They were given mirrors. Now you tell us you negotiated. How can you negotiate with a person whom you don't even, because they didn't even understand these languages? How did you negotiate with them? So please, if you want this process or your inputs to be taken seriously, don't come here with sheer arrogance. We have been listening to you, insulting us, asking on us, calling us names, but you want us to take you seriously. That's sheer insanity.
For me, AfriForum acted today as a white Black Land First organization. They're definitely not representing the white minority in South Africa. And what you did today was a disgrace for your own organization. And I'm telling you, you will feel that in future. The way you acted the previous months, the way you acted trying to fight for something you believe in, you will destroy yourself. Whether you like it or not, that will happen, because South Africans are fair people and they judge, and when they judge harshly. But I do have a question. Every forum was present basically at 95% of all the public hearings we had across the land. At every forum where I was, AfriForum spoke. Was there not a report back from those people who spoke to head office to report to you that South Africa, the majority of South Africans who attended those hearings, are hunger for land, and that is a problem that we all need to solve? And was there no report back to that? And if there was a report back, why don't you change your stance to be more progressive and trying to assist a problem we need to fix in this country?
Honourable Swart.
No, Chair, I also would like to add dat ek is teleurgesteld met julle submissie vandag. Ek is al 20 jaar in die parlement. We've been building a new South Africa. We've been building relations. And I've heard other AfriForum meetings where you have presented. There's not been this arrogance. We are trying to build a South Africa. You are taking us back. En ek maak 'n bepleit met jou vandag dat your insults to the people here is unacceptable. We need to come together as a nation. Ek is Afrikaans sprekende. Vandag 52 jaar gelede is Hendrik Verwoerd doodgemaak in hierdie parlement. Jy weet dit, né? And we need to reach out to each other. You've heard people here that are hardening their hearts as a result of what you have said today. We've been sitting with this process for months to find a restorative justice solution. You have not commented on one clause of the Constitution. All you've done is you've attacked the ANC and the EFF. Why don't you comment on the provisions of the Constitution and be constructive so that we can take this process forward? It's exactly the same as Black Land First yesterday that attacked me as a white person. You've done the same to black people today. And so please, I would plead with you to reconsider your approach. We are called to be peacemakers. Blessed be the peacemakers. We are called with a ministry of reconciliation. And I'd urge you to consider your position. Thank you.
And I agree with them when they say he mustn't.
Lazy?
Chair, I understand my colleagues and I agree with them when they say he mustn't continue. But for one reason, and I hope all members will agree with me, South Africa and black people in South Africa, including the whites, they should know that we've got such in our midst, and he must actually come out very clear for the whole South Africa to know what problems we're having. Because he is saying black people don't need land for agriculture. That's what he says. He's saying black people don't need more land than what they've got. AfriForum is calling black people the so-called blacks. That's what South Africa must hear. Give him a chance. As much as it's an embarrassment, let him continue to do so for record purposes and for people to know the true colors of AfriForum.
Our top story this evening, land expropriation without compensation is here to stay, and those who fear the proposed policy must not panic. Well, that's the assurance from President Cyril Ramaphosa. He was answering questions in the National Assembly.
Answering questions in the National Assembly, the President is firm on land expropriation without compensation. He says the previous willing buyer, willing seller policy would have cost the state up to 750 billion rands and taken up to 100 years to complete land reform. And now he wants certainty on policy for both investors and citizens. He reiterated that the proposed policy will be done orderly, constitutionally, and would not affect agricultural production and food security.
We should no longer be afraid of this process of having to change the land ownership architecture in our country. It is here and it is here to stay. It is going to happen.
President Ramaphosa was grilled on the impact of the VAT increase as well as the fuel hikes. He says balance must be struck between revenue generation and the plight of the poor.
If we just reduce the fuel levy, and at the same time, what happens if we lose that revenue, and it has an impact on a whole range of other things. So, truth be told, Mr. Maimani, it is a difficult one. It is one of those things that we as government have to deal with. It is not as easy as just snapping a finger and we come up with an answer.
The president says cabinet will soon take a decision on zero-rated items for VAT. Ramaphosa also announced an investment summit which will be held in late October to attract investors and stimulate growth.
In the coming days, cabinet will be announcing details of a stimulus package to reignite growth and to establish the foundation for a sustained economic recovery plan. This package reprioritizes funds towards initiatives that are labor-intensive, addresses infrastructural needs, and boosts local economies.
Ramaphosa has poured cold water on suggestions that the BRICS partnership is selling off the country to China. He says trade balance between the two countries is being closely monitored. He's also poured cold water that he would use his position to advance his relatives under the Independent Power Producer Program. Pulilani Philip, SABC News, Parliament.
We need a borderless continent. We need a continent with one currency. We need a continent with one parliament, which has got teeth and will bite and hold the executives in countries accountable. And ultimately, we need one African president. We need United States of Africa. We supported and we continue to support those ideals of brother leader Gaddafi.